All right, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host and friend in the Christian music industry, Wisdom Moon, and today I'm excited to have my friend Ken Gober here with me. Welcome, Ken.
Hey, welcome, Wisdom. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for joining us. And maybe as a way to start off, I'll have you share a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to, share.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like Wisdom said, my name's Ken Gober, Christian singer-songwriter. And I live currently in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I'm in between Charlotte and Nashville. And I'm originally from a place called, and don't say it, Wisdom, place called Gary, Indiana. Yes, Michael Jackson and the Jacksons are from there. They're a lot older than me, but I'm originally from Gary, Indiana. And if you don't know what Gary is I'm probably about 25 or 26 miles outside of Chicago. So it's the Indiana,
Okay.
Illinois state line. And been doing music. I mean, I guess that's the story of most artists. I've been singing since I was a child, but probably most of my 20s and 30s, I was what we call a blue collar
Hmm.
musician. So I gig for a living.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always sang in the church, but the band was a top 40 pop band. We did a lot of overseas stuff, cruise ships, just had an opportunity to travel. The cool thing about it was everyone in the band were believers,
Hmm.
so we had something special. So even though we may have done My Girl on the cruise ship, or Stand By Me, it was always something in our spirits that people would always come and say, "Hey, you guys go to church?" And it was like, "Yeah, oh, I hear it in you."
Hmm.
So the message has always been important to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, just I've been doing it for a long time, and just it's a passion, but it's also a calling as well. And
Yeah.
I just love what I do.
That's awesome. I was reading your story, and I feel like we could spend the whole interview just you sharing your backstory. But
Yeah.
one thing that really stuck out to me is around 23 years old, you were addicted to drugs. Can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and it's always a part of my testimony. Sometimes people say, "Oh man, you sure you want to tell that?" But
Mm.
it's a testament of how God can change your life.
Yeah.
But so growing up, I was an athlete, and so I had a football scholarship,
Mm.
and I went to the University of Montana to play football. My third year, just just was a good kid, but was like that prodigal son type of thing.
Yeah.
I had everything going for me, but it just seemed like something out here was better.
Mm.
And so in high school, I drank and smoked marijuana, and but it was like a party type of thing as kids. I was an athlete. It didn't bother me, my body. But my
Yeah.
third year in college, I just strayed far away,
Mm.
and I lost my scholarship, and I was kicked out. So I went back home, and if anybody knows anything about Gary, Indiana, it was a great place for me to grow up, especially. I'm an '80s child, so growing up then,
Yeah.
it was pretty good. But it's also one of your poor cities. So what happens, and here's the lesson too. What happens when you're on top?
Yeah.
So I had a football scholarship, and then something happens, and you drop to your lowest point. It always seems like the community of those that, how can I say it, that were not kind of on your encouraging you when you were on top. They all come when you fall,
Mm.
and I slid into the wrong crowd going back home.
Yeah.
So what took alcohol and drugs as kind of a party thing, because I felt like a failure, that took over my life.
Mm.
And then I started running with the wrong crowd. I knew better because I was, I accepted Christ at a young age, but as you know, you still have to grow into Christianity.
Yeah.
And at the age of 23, man, I was strung out on drugs, on crack cocaine, and at my lowest point.
Mm.
And I think I went into a drug rehabilitation program. Back then, it was like a 28-day program. But I think what I learned retrospectively, what I learned was everyone's rock bottom, which I like to call, is different. And I truly believe that not that I'm better than anyone, but I truly believe that God, the rock bottom that He chose for my life and my destiny, was not to take me out. It was to wake me up. And man, I went into drug rehab. I came out, and it was okay, Lord. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And at that moment, He reminded me, hey, I gave you a gift. So I had stopped singing. I was playing football, so I had stopped singing. I was just training and partying, and I forgot about the gift that God gave me. So when my mind cleared up, it was, I truly believe that the Lord opened the door and said, hey, it's time for you to do what I called you to do. Now, and here's the blessing real quick too. Here's the blessing on when God touches your life and He has a destiny for you. He didn't just say, hey, you forgot I gave you a gift of music and singing. What He did was, I immediately, after a year of just making sure everything was good, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. And probably maybe a little over a year after I got to Atlanta, Georgia, I auditioned for this band because I was trying to do music, and at that time it was R&B. But it wasn't working out. I was working a day job, and the Lord opened up a door for me to audition with this band a year after moving to Atlanta. And when I auditioned for those guys, the first thing those guys said was, "Hey man, we do this for a living, so do you have any ties?" And it was like I still didn't understand it initially. So I said, "Yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's do it." But God opened up the door to keep me in a pathway, and He connected me with guys that were believers, right? And then He opened up the door for me to travel all over the world, and I haven't looked back. But my testimony has always been that God can change you no matter how far you've sunk.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, man.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think your life is just an awesome testament of God's power to, break any addiction that we may be facing.
Yes.
And what's the reality is that some people listening now, they may be even in church ministry and they might have addictions in their life. And I think that's really encouraging to hear you talk about like how God really set you free from your addictions, and now God's using you in ways that maybe you didn't even imagine in that season. So that's really awesome. And one thing I would love for you to talk about too is your current music. You recently released a new single called Either Way, and we've had the privilege of helping with that release and getting it, and it's been awesome to work with you and also your wife. She's awesome.
She's the boss.
Yeah. So I would love for you to talk about that song, what led you to write that song, and some of the backstory.
So the song was co-written by me, a good friend of mine, Sam Hart, which I'm sure you know Sam, and a country singer-songwriter, Jackson Mickelson. And it was birthed from a year ago. A good friend of mine passed, went to be with the Lord. However, prior to that, maybe almost 2 years before that, he was diagnosed and they gave him a short time to live. And he lived longer than what the doctor said. So that's always a testament that God has the final say. But I wanted to honor him in some way. And Sam and I were sitting down, and you just said, "Man, what's on your heart? What you want to write about?" And I said, I really want to honor my friend, and I want to write something. However, I don't want to. We know to be absent from our body is to be present with the Lord. But I didn't want to sound crass or arrogant to say, a lot of times people say things they don't mean, they don't mean harm, but to just say, hey, don't worry about it, they're in a better place. It's true, but sometimes that doesn't make you feel better.
Yeah.
Right. So initially we wrote it and we wanted to say that regardless of what happened, he's in a better place and he's with the Lord, right? And the song is entitled Either Way. And what either way kind of symbolizes is regardless of the storm that you're going through, on this side or the other, God is consistent on both sides, right? So when we talk about sickness and terminal illness, if he chooses to call you or call you to be with him, right, you're healed there. But if he chooses, like Hezekiah, he gave him 15 more years. If he chooses to allow you to live longer and beat that diagnosis, he's on that side as well. So the song was entitled Either Way. And it had a special meaning. And as we talked before the interview, the interesting thing about God is I wrote that song to honor a good friend of mine. And in the process of us releasing the project, my mom passed. My mom passed. We just buried my mom last week. And the song, this is how God works. I wrote the song to touch others and heal others who may be going through something like that. And God turned the finger around and said, okay, this is for you as well, too. And I thank him. It's been touching people on radio, during streaming digitally. And I just thank him for giving me that song.
Yeah, man, you've gone through some tough losses, and I mean, I'm thankful that you're even able to talk about it already, about your mom, because that's really fresh.
Yes, man.
And
fresh.
I wonder if there's things that might be helpful for people listening or watching as they're processing loss. I know we all experience loss at some time in our life, family members and friends. And sometimes it's easy to almost like doubt God and feel anger, towards God. So how have you processed that?
It's different. You know how sometimes when people say, hey, I'm praying for you. And, a lot of times, especially when we go through things that are trivial, and it's like, thanks, man, thank you. A new job, I got fired, I need a new job, I'm having financial troubles. Hey, I'm praying for you. But when they say, I'm understanding now, when people, two things, I'm understanding now when they say, I'm praying for you, you can actually feel those prayers. I don't want to say weird because it's God, but it's weird because it just seems like he's just holding my family, holding us up like this. And every time we feel like we're getting ready to sunk down into kind of a funk, he's holding us and keeping us steady. And the cool thing about it was my whole family, we're all believers. We're not perfect, but we're believers. And we just truly, all of my brothers, we all went home. We were there for like the last 3 weeks. We were in the room when we took my mom off the breathing tube. And we were there singing and praying. And each one of us had our moments, but it was just like God was just releasing, as he released her, he released grief from us and replaced it with just his strength, man. And now, and I don't know, 6 months from now, I may be going through something. But it's I will say this: if we trust in God, I just truly believe that he will come through and he will uphold us. And then, for me now, when I sing Either Way, it has a double meaning. I know that those lyrics, either way, I know you're for me. Life and death can't keep me from your love. It has substance to me now. And I just pray that people just depend on him because he's the only one that can hold us up.
Amen. I think that's really, encouraging for people that are experiencing, loss and
Yeah,
disappointments in life. And,
yeah,
our world, like, I feel like there's so many crazy things happening right now, like a lot
yes,
of tragedies and a lot of tension too, in our
right, right,
society, whether it's like racial tension or, just
yeah,
like the economy even.
yeah,
And I know like you've been doing this for a long time, doing music
yeah,
for a long time, and you have a lot of years of just life experience as well.
right.
So one thing that I know like we've talked about in the past is how maybe sometimes like you don't feel like you know where you fit in Christian music.
Yeah,
I would love for you to, talk about that, maybe unpack that a little bit.
yeah, and I'm still working on that. Some interesting someone I'm partnering with to do some radio work for me recently told me we were talking about something, and we was talking about Christian radio and gospel radio,
Mm,
and I was giving him some frustration to what we're going to talk about now, and he said, brother, you don't realize that's how God created you. He
mhm.
created you to not fit,
Yeah.
to be different. So what wisdom is kind of speaking of, I kind of let him know that I was just a little nervous, um, um, being on the Christian side, CCM side, being African American. Although plenty of us are, in CCM, but sometimes if they see you before they hear you, there's a perception on both sides.
Yeah.
I released a single last year, early last year, entitled "I Will Heal," and it was just basically that if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves,
Mm,
right? And Christian radio said, it's a little bit too gospel.
mm.
Gospel radio said, that's a little too CCM. And I'm saying, what what is it? And I laugh now because the challenge has been throughout my life, and I'm starting to kind of get comfortable with it now. So when I used to gig, I would be in the lounges and the clubs, on the cruise ships, in the hotels, and people would always come up to me and say, "Hey, I enjoyed you guys' set. You go to church, you
Mm.
know?" And I would always say, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, right?" And then no matter where I lived or where I traveled, if I was somewhere, especially in the States, for 3 months or 4 months, I would always find a church,
Yeah.
and I would go to church. And periodically I would join a choir where I lived, and I would sing in church. And the first thing they would say is, "Man, I enjoyed that. It touched me. But your mannerisms, do you sing in the clubs?" And it was like I didn't fit in the church. I didn't fit in the clubs.
Yeah.
For a long time I would just say, "So Lord, where do I fit?"
Mm.
And I think with this single, this latest single, I think I'm getting closer to the message. Um, this is who I am. This is my message. Has it touched you? Then let's go. Let's move on. But it is tricky, and you know it from being in the industry.
Yeah.
It is tricky. Yeah, it is tricky, man.
Yeah, it's interesting because, everybody wants to put um, people in a box,
Yes. Yeah,
and
yeah, man.
I kind of feel the same way too. Like, I don't know where I fit. I mean, I used to work at labels. I didn't feel like I fit there in that model, and a lot of times I felt like I had a different perspective on things than
Mm,
what the traditional like label,
right.
would see and or how they would approach certain things. And in the same kind of way, I think you're an artist that maybe in the traditional model of Christian music, what we would call the industry,
Right.
uh, where you might fit in one of those boxes.
Yeah, yeah.
So you make it kind of hard for people to go, okay, you fit over here,
Right. Man, I
but
do.
I do think that's actually a good thing because it helps you stand out and it
Mm,
makes you unique and it makes people pause and go, wait, the song really, there's
Yeah.
really good meaning to it. It's a strong song, but yeah, maybe sometimes radio, because radio obviously has like very defined
Yes,
sound,
they do.
and
Yeah, yeah,
there's a whole
yeah. They have a strict model on
yeah,
either side.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah,
think, I mean, what's encouraging to me is I think there's less and less of that, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but I think there's those walls are kind of breaking down
yeah,
because
yeah,
of one, because of just how our culture is, even,
yeah.
like
It's
there's
changing.
less definitions of those things
Right.
in our culture in general, and
For
with
good or for bad.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and with streaming platforms and playlists, there's less and less restrictions around like, well,
True.
this has to be this sound.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Um,
agree.
so
I
yeah,
agree.
I'm excited to see like your journey in it, and
Me too.
I do think God's gonna open up doors, where maybe you didn't even see how you were gonna get into these doors. So I'm excited and I'm encouraged by people like you that are refusing to fit in a
Yeah,
category and
yeah. Right, right,
no, I don't feel like I'm called to be this. I'm just
yeah,
called to do my music, and I'm not gonna define it a certain way.
right. Yeah.
I think that's really cool. So, as you're doing that, like, how do you, I guess, find people that really get your vision, whether it's a producer or co-writer, people that you're obviously like you have a team that you're kind of building around you. Like,
Right.
how do you find people that understand your vision and what you feel like you're called to be?
I think well first off, so a lot of times in the street. So like I said, I'm from Gary, Indiana, right by Chicago. We have a saying that says "game recognizes game,"
Mm,
right? And like my music, and like when I'm singing, performing, worshiping, whatever you want to call it, it comes from the heart.
mm,
Straight from the heart. I'm one of those guys. When I Now that I've moved back to Charlotte, the church that I belong to, I'm starting back to be a worship leader and get back into the worship team. I've always been that kind of guy where I'm not gonna push you to come on and worship with me. I'm not.
mm,
Sometimes I may not say anything to you initially because I'm seeing where God is, where He wants to take me,
mm.
and I truly believe that wherever He takes me, those that are attuned to Him, they'll go too.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing about putting a team together and trying to pick the right people to touch your vision, because that's what it is. It's my vision and destiny, and you just don't want anyone touching that. I've been there before,
Yeah.
and I pour out my heart, and somehow I'm always connecting to people with the same heart as me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Point example, year before last, I was in Nashville when I first moved to Nashville, and interesting enough, I didn't know anyone,
Mm-hmm.
so I just went and Googled and did some research, and for Christian producers,
Yeah.
and I found I narrowed it down on my spreadsheet to like three,
Yeah.
and Sam
Mm-hmm.
Hart Productions. Sam was one of the producers, and when we talked, I think he didn't plan on it because he had a 30-minute session and we would talk. I mean, I think we talked for over an hour, and we didn't talk about music. We
Wow.
talked about culture. We talked about just a whole bunch of stuff. And then at the end, it was, oh, so I mean, what do you want to do? I have some time open, So it's just kind of like a heart type of thing. But then I also can feel when someone just wants either money, because
Mm-hmm.
you know how studios and producers are. Sometimes engineers, they just want money.
Yeah.
Hey, how does that sound? Oh, it sounds good. I need a producer to help me,
Yeah.
So I can kind of tell eventually that my heart touches your heart. Same thing with you guys. Sam told me about you guys. I researched, looked at a few things, and then when I talked to you that first time in
Yeah.
Indiana, it was, oh, he has a heart for God too. I
Mm,
like that, you know. So
yeah.
that's kind of how I do it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think sometimes it's easy to go for like the cheapest option that's out there,
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
But yeah, I think, really as an artist, like you want to connect and work with link arms with people that
Yes,
get you, that have the same, perspective on your music
yeah,
and like the same approach when it comes to the kingdom of God, because
true.
that misalignment could cause a lot of friction. And there are a lot of producers out there that just, and a lot of them actually aren't even producers. Like when I
Right.
see
Exactly.
them, I'm like, you're
Exactly.
not even a producer. You just like
Right.
engineer. You know how to hit record.
Engineering.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yes.
think yeah, producers, like you have to find the right producer that will really pull the right things out of you. And
Correct.
I mean, that's so important to find that right person to help you do that. Uh,
Yeah.
and
And also and like I said too, and also from a marketing perspective, from publishing, a publishing company, I mean a publisher, PR
uh,
person, just that whole team. It has to be, and I think with me from a budget standpoint, from being independent, and you know how that is, we don't have huge
yeah,
budgets. But you know what I've learned is if the heart is right, then so on the team that we kind of smorgasbord together. There's some where the prices are here, and
hmm,
then some of the prices are good, and it's just a mixture because we need certain things,
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. I always tell people I'm a horrible salesperson because I don't try to like upsell people. And I think you have to come to us and be like, hey, can we add on a couple of
can
other
we add
things?
but that's why you're blessed. That's why you're blessed.
Yeah, because I mean, I know the challenges and struggles of the independent
Yeah,
artist, and most of the time it's very limited budget, and like
yeah,
every dollar has to count. So
yes,
like I'm very aware of that, and I've worked with hundreds of independent artists to know, okay, here are the key things that most artists like they really really need, and then the other
yes.
things, like if you have the budget to do the additional things, so those are a bonus. So yeah, we never try to like upsell artists on things.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes it's like the artist has to be like, well, I actually need some other stuff too.
Some other stuff. Oh, trust me, I know. Hey, I need help with this too.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But it's cool. It's a cool journey.
Yeah, yeah. And what are some things that you're really excited about with your music in the next few months or up to maybe a year?
So we are in the process. Actually, I was supposed to do a live recording,
Oh,
video
cool.
recording of not with an audience, but we were
Yeah.
going to do all of our upcoming songs and the songs that we have so far in Nashville a couple of weeks ago, but personal reasons
Yeah.
with my mom and all of that. So that has probably been pushed back to around July or
Mm,
August. So I'm excited about that because what we're trying to do is so. As you know, the music industry has definitely changed. And then
yeah.
from an independent standpoint, strategy sometimes changes.
Yeah.
And one of the strategies that we decided, my wife and I, we decided was, you know what, for us, doing an album right now is really not the best
Hmm.
thing that we can do for from a budget standpoint, from a excuse me, and not having a huge following, sales. It's just kind of a waste of money right now. So I was in the studio all last year, and we recorded about 5 songs, 6, I think. So what we're doing, the first thing we're going to do is whenever, and I don't know when it will stop, but whenever the either way buzz
Hmm.
stops, then we're planning on releasing a couple of more singles this year.
Yeah.
Some new singles. But what we wanted to do was we wanted to go in because we do have a following. But live music is just where I was born and what I
Yeah.
love to do. I want to introduce new fans to Ken Gober and my heart.
Hmm.
So we're preparing, re-preparing to do one that live studio recording, and we're going to do all of the songs that we recorded. We're going to do kind of acoustic thing, kind of an
Okay.
unplugged thing,
Yeah.
just so we can minister to others. So that's coming up.
Cool.
Also, too, I'm waiting actually too for I don't know if you've heard of the Extreme Tour. So it's a company,
Yeah.
group of guys out of Nashville. They're putting their tour together, and I'm kind of like on the last of the finalists to hopefully be a part of that tour. And it
Oh, cool.
starts, I think it starts the end of this month. Well, June, yeah, the end of this month. So there'll be some dates for those guys for the next 4 months,
Awesome.
and we're actually working on the video for our next single. Whenever we release it, hopefully it won't be another 6 months. So either way, it's still blessing people. But we have a new single. Also, the next single is called Unchangeable. I'm not unchangeable. It's called Speechless. So I'm currently working on that video. And then we're going to do some things here in Charlotte. We do have a nice fan base in Charlotte, and because of COVID, and I was living in Nashville,
Mm.
I didn't do any ministering and worshiping and performing here in a while. So
Yeah.
we have about 5 or 6 things that we're putting together. So to answer your question, we're just trying to get out there now
Yeah.
and see if our music touches people. That's the
Yeah.
biggest thing we're trying to do right now.
That's great. I think I mentioned it in a previous episode that, unless you're Taylor Swift or, somebody like that, you probably don't need to release an album these days. It is
Yeah.
really good to like, drip content out on a consistent
Yes.
basis and keep your fan base engaged and grow your community.
Yeah. Yeah.
But rather
Yes.
than throw like 10 plus songs at somebody, give them
Yeah,
one
man.
time, give them time to really enjoy that one song, and then continue to do that pretty consistently. I think that's a much better strategy these days. Just
Yeah, and I think the benefit also is you can take your time and do the best songs
mhm,
that God gives you,
yeah,
as opposed to just wrapping up. And back in the day, you would have 10 to 12 songs on an album, and only four
yeah,
were like the best.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. If people want to follow you on social media, what's the best way to find you?
So I'll say this: I'm getting better with social media, but they can find me on Facebook, Ken Gober Music, on Facebook, on Instagram, Ken.Gober Music. YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, Ken Gober Music, as well, and my website is
Okay.
kengobermusic.com. We have the video for either way is out on YouTube. It's doing pretty good. We're getting great comments and results on that, so that is pretty good. Also, too, Wisdom. I'll call it the second season because I did the first season towards the end of last year and a couple of months this year, but I do have a podcast, and it's
Oh,
called Songs That Matter. And I'm getting ready to next week start releasing the next what I call season of Songs
yeah.
That Matter. And what it's about is it's a podcast. For me, the message is important,
Mm,
and the music is good, but the message is important.
mm,
And I just kind of take songs that I love that have a great message
yeah.
of God, of healing, and just within a few minutes, just talk about what the message is, I believe, what God is saying in those songs. So it's on Spotify, Anchor,
Yeah.
iTunes podcast. So, yeah.
Sweet. Well, thanks for sharing all of that. Um, and our team's been praying for you and your family,
Thank you,
so
man.
you'll continue to be in our prayers. And thanks so much for taking the time to be on our podcast. We look forward to
Thanks,
checking
man.
out your podcast. Sounds like
Yeah.
it's a really interesting podcast because I think you're really right, especially for Christians. Like it's not just about the production and the beat, but it's really
Right.
about the message. So
Right. The
yeah,
message.
that sounds like a really interesting podcast. So
Thanks, man.
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Ken, for your time and just sharing your story and being very transparent about, just your journey and your seasons of life.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you.